Get this going. Flash, the greatest gamer of all time.
Yeah, you know, we talked about Boxer being the face of Brood War for so many years. Flash is the new face. He's the new king, and it's mechanics. It's a more modern style. What we saw was intelligence out of Boxer in the early parts of Brood War, but Flash showing us safety, economic aggression, taking the early CCs, taking the early economic advantage, and just macroing, moving his fingers faster than the world had ever seen. And even still, after playing the game for so many years, he's just as fast as he always was.
Okay, we are about to hop into this match. Again, it's just a best of one with these guys. After our show match of Flash versus BISU, we then have our final match, which is going to be Flash versus J-Dog.
That is absolutely correct. Looks like we are setting up to jump into this one tasteless.
All right, it's almost time, Wolf. I am Craig Asimon. With me is PogChamp. We are ready to cast this game. We're going to try to make this accessible for those of you guys who might have been a little bit too young to know about Brood War, and show you guys the beauty of this game as it is coming back, and it's for everyone.
Okay, circuit breakers. Now, we talk about modern era, modern players. Neo versions of this map and the original version of this map are used in play today. It was considered one of the most balanced maps in Brood War history, and is oftentimes the first pick for players in a best of three because it kind of sets the tone for a matchup because it's so balanced in every way.
All right, we're ready. Let's do this. This is a best of one, BISU versus Flash. In the bottom? No. In the upper right. Sorry, guys.
Tricked.
they want to go to the upper right. That's why I got intro first. We have BISU up here.
Victor in the previous game, coming off the win, has some momentum on his side.
And his opponent down here in the bottom left, Flash, the greatest gamer of all time.
For back-to-back ASL titles recently, and obviously just has some of the best earnings in esports, one of the best salaries anyone's ever had in esports as we know it, and is so famous. His nickname is the ultimate weapon because no matter what style he brings to the table, it feels like you can't defeat him, even if you know what he's going to do. His hands are faster than yours. His mechanics and his decision-making on the fly just feel better than yours no matter who you are, and that's why he dominates still to this day. And, I mean, you have to call him the favorite here as well, even though BISU is coming off of that win.
I mean, he is the favorite, especially when you consider that Flash has been quite dominant in all the recent Brood War tournaments that we've had out here in Korea. BISU's done very well, but Flash seems to be on a roll, and he's playing better than ever before, to be honest.
Yeah, it feels like an upward spiral for him even. You know?
Well said. Now, what is Flash going to do? He's making his barracks on the low ground. Now, Flash at this point in time has engineered a pretty modern build where he gets a fast expand so quickly. People thought this type of stuff was impossible. Sometimes even getting it before he has gas and just holding perfectly with a bunker. It's very tough to pull off, but he's managed to do it. Now, BISU, I don't know if he's going to try to get abusive with some of the advantages Protoss have in the early games. Since Protoss can mix it up, they can Reaver drop, they can DT rush, they can just go Dragoon range and rush you, they can double expand. There's so many things Protoss can do.
Yeah.
The Terran has to be ready for everything if they're going to survive to the mid-game.
And you'd think that that would be a problem for Flash potentially because of his normal early eco-type plays where he gets the fast command center, but it feels like sometimes he just has the answer to everything, and you find yourself in a catch-22 against a player who's so good at defending aggression or unusual tech, say the DTs or even something like a Reaver drop, which is so unlikely these days in this meta. And so you would think, okay, well, probably I should play insanely greedy against him, but going toe-to-toe in a macro game against Flash is tough. It's the approach many players in the modern era will take, though, because just rushing this guy, being aggressive, hardly ever works out. Just so difficult to cheese this player who has handled everything about a dozen times. Anything you could ever imagine.
So the SCD is going to go up here and check out what's happening inside the Protoss's main. Now, everything looks standard so far. You can't really glean too much from this. It appears that BISU may be going for an expansion of his own coming up here. Basically, Protoss has to make a choice. Do I try to throw the Terran player off early on, because in this case he's fast expanding, or do I just expand myself? And by the way, Flash is already being quite smart here because he sees that the probe hasn't made the Nexus there. He's just going to make an eBay here, and Protoss have to kill this. Yeah, because you need to have an expansion up, and it's a very sneaky strat.
It's the eBay. The reason why the eBay is used is because it's the fastest building hit point per mineral building that you can use. It's very large as well, so you can build it on the edge of the Nexus build point. So very annoying to deal with. This is going to very significantly delay the Nexus of BISU, which also forces the Dragoon to be here, which means it's not pressuring, it's not poking. So if you get away with this, if your SCV is unscouted, it's a great tactic. And now, obviously, Flash has the lead with this fast CC, has the bunker up, and is building towards the later factory, so there's still a window of time with range that BISU can poke, because with range, the Dragoons will outrange the bunker before the siege tanks get there. But again, Flash is just so good at defending this type of style. Let's see how it works out.
You know, this is a very late Nexus. I mean, Flash already, I think, has some momentum on his side with that pretty sneaky eBay that's over there. Now, of course, when you go for a quick command center before gas, the factory is quite late, but so far Flash has basically perfected this opener. He should have just the right number of SCVs over there. Now, see how he has the SCV at the very, very top? If you right-click on minerals with workers, instead of them bumping into each other, they just glide together. So he hides an SCV up there in case the Protoss is all in it and he needs to pull his SCVs to the front. He can grab his workers, right-click on the minerals at the top of the map where that SCV has vision, and those units can even glide through the Protosses and then go for a trap.
Yeah, very well said. And just using the SCVs to repair here. To hit the SCVs, the Dragoons would have to move into range of the bunker, of course, so this is why this is basically an impervious defense here. Now, it costs the Terran money to do this, basically just bleeding money to survive, but because he has this lead, and will, of course, scout the Nexus now, Flash is going to feel so happy. So, I mean, gets the SCV not into the main base, doesn't see if there's any tech follow-up, but he already got the Academy. He's going to have scanners just in case it was a DT follow-up or anything like that. He's in a really good place here. Factory's up, so once that siege tank comes out, the push is going to be over here for the Protoss. And Flash, again, we talked about how he was so strong in the early game, and even though this is just a standard push coming out from BISU, the eBay block is what gets him massively ahead now as we see the standard transition.
Okay, so with the tank out here, you got to be careful because sometimes these good Protoss players will dive forward and gun down your tank, especially if they have 4 Dragoons total, because it's 8 shots to kill a tank. And so you do not want to overextend with that tank because that's just a big reset button. And the follow-up play for BISU is actually to set up for a Reaver drop. Occasionally the Terran is so preoccupied trying to hold the entrance from the Dragoons that the Reaver drop can blindside them and you can take out workers that way.
Is that a bay? Did we see the bay? Okay,
yeah, it's a robo bay. That's why it's tucked all the way in the upper left of the Protoss's main, is that the odds of a scan catching that, because if he doesn't see that, then he's just assuming, okay, you're probably just getting observers, which you're always going to have in this matchup, and then making Dragoons as well.
So the shuttle's out already. He's going to research the shuttle speed so that he can fly that in and obviously get the micro that's required off to make sure that the shuttle gets the massive hits. He's going to bring a Zealot with this as well, just to, obviously so he can help finish off some SCVs and disrupt any units that come over to defend. Those Flash keeps his tanks very well split. Your one tank in the bunker is going to defend anything that could hit him in the early game. Keeps the tanks in the main base in case of something like this. All right, so first Reaver's out. He's coming across an old style, and remember, sure, the graphics have been updated, but the Scarab hits are just the same as always. So
if you play enough, you'll get good at getting the Reaver in the right spots. The Scarab almost always hits, but the Scarab pathing is a little bit funny. So sometimes it can get stuck on the edges of buildings or minerals, and we'll have to see if this is going to work. I'm not feeling this too much here from BISU. We'll see, but I feel like Flash should be ready. What BISU's trying to do is double expand here, and just use the Reaver. If it doesn't get any kills, it'll at least keep the pressure on. Look at this. This turret finishes exactly perfectly as to when the shuttle gets there.
Yep, now he just has to fly away with it, and Flash is just kind of ready for everything, as you would expect. Has a triple factory up. It's almost eerie how basically every curveball that could be thrown at him is just shut down here. Now, shuttle speed is finished. There's still an opportunity to fly past the turret, and just go for broke with this. This turret is going to be up, looks like just in time. 2 Goliaths are out. Let's see if he can still get the money shots if he wants to commit.
Yeah, it's not going to be worth it. With the tanks there and the Goliaths, he has perfect defense. Now, it's not the end of the world for Protoss. The Reaver is a great tool to have in a fight. You can keep dropping the Reaver and firing at tanks and vultures and picking it back up before it's able to be targeted while the Dragoons and the Zealots are doing most of the soaking. And so from here, Flash decides to extend out and secure his third base down at the bottom. And we may actually see Terran try to grab onto the very bottom center. But BISU may want to try to do a bust.
Yeah, looks like that's what his plan may be here. And try to
there's
just kind of
not really vultures here.
Yeah, there's not really, and basically could just ferry these Dragoons into the main base with the Reavers, so can actually possibly even just take out these turrets. Backs away now, he is spotted, so the longer he commits to this without actually fully committing is risky. I guess he's just going to simply back away now. Has these Dragoons on hold position so they don't actually get aggroed by the tank and walk to their death. We'll move them away now, because obviously in Brood War, or StarCraft 2 for that matter, when something aggroes your units, they just automatically attack towards it. So if you didn't have those on hold position, they would all just walk to their deaths there. Dragoon's not the smartest units, well, even if they look a little bit prettier in this version.
You definitely have to utilize hold position. Remember, guys, you only have 12 units on a control key in Brood War. So if they start to get hit and get fished into the army, it could be a nightmare trying to get them all back together again. We have a second shuttle, so this could be a bust. We'll have to see. He's waiting to see if maybe when the SCVs come down.
Could be a big one.
No.
Wow.
Look, Flash is just there in time. BISU backs off. Now, we also see, I believe it's a probe in the top center. He may be going to expand, but it also looks like if Zealot Lakes finish, this could be similar to like White Raw's special tactics, where you go so hard on 3 bases, sometimes cutting probes, that you can actually spill over and overwhelm a Terran player who's just getting their third base set up, especially with shuttles on your side.
Exactly, and also maybe his siege tanks are just unsieged at the worst possible moment.
Here we go.
He's going to commit to it here. He has the shuttle, trying to dive in to get the drags.
He actually shot down the shuttle that was full of the Zealots. We're not having quite the connections that he needs here.
The first Reaver shot there onto the tanks was really good, though. Can he continue the momentum? I just don't think he has enough Zealots here, unfortunately.
Well,
this is going to get shut down.
He's still got the Reaver, so there's that going for him. He needs the Zealot Lakes to finish, and that should be finishing momentarily. He might try to go in for a second strike force. Notice, it's been more Goliaths to shoot down the shuttle than it is Vultures to fight the Zealots. So the Zealots are a real huge threat here.
Also, remember, the tanks weren't killed there, so the huge army advantage BISU had, and yeah, I say army advantage, I mean in size, is now kind of washed away because he lost so many of those Dragoons and the Zealots, but the formation here is stronger now for Flash. He has this sieged up position.
Okay, hold up. Look at that splitting. Look at that angling. He's going to take out all of these tanks. Maybe not this one that's right there. We'll see if the splash damage actually helps connect that. Yeah, really good save. Now, if BISU keeps doing this, he's eventually going to end up with a smaller army. In fact, Flash has got this game down to such a science, he may try to counterattack.
I think he's
saying, you fed into me a little bit too much.
Yeah, I think he's going to try to hit these Vulture run-bys here. Looks like he's going to set up the mines first, try to get some good hits. Good reaction there by BISU. So not going to have the opportunity to do the mine run-by anymore. Does move away with this army, sets back up for his third base, knowing that continuing further here would be risky. The Terran army is always at its strongest when it's in full formation. So we're just seeing the 12 and 6 o'clock bases both taken now. This could just normalize into a later game. I'm not entirely sure if BISU did get the Stargate and the Templar Archives just yet, but if he has, he's definitely heading in that direction. Nice move there with the Zealot to actually take that Vulture out.
We're seeing the story of Flash hold off BISU, but there's another story that's going on, which is that BISU is not growing at the same rate as Flash is. With the amount of units he's lost, because we're getting to the point where Protoss can become potentially explosive in the growth rate. He did throw away a lot of units, and the tank count is continuing to grow up. When Terran gets maxed out against a Protoss army, the Terran army is basically stronger. If Stasis wasn't in this game, there'd be no way for Protoss to effectively engage a maxed out Terran army, especially when the attack upgrades are there and the armor upgrades are good.
Yeah. I mean, even if you had a supercomputer to control, it would be virtually impossible to break a tank line like that. Shuttle shut down here by the turrets. But the key factor is that Flash never gained ground on the map. So sure, he's approaching that max out, and that is very scary.
Well,
but it's BISU who's teching up. He has the Arbiter Tribunal completed now, and Flash was never able to threaten him on his 4th base before he had that Supreme late game tech up. And it's not fully prepared yet, but he is going to have options. He is going to have opportunities with that tech now to take this mid game into the late game with an advantage.
Okay. It looks like BISU might try to come around here on the edge. Remember, when Terran, in fact, do max out, they're no longer worried about trying to push on you. They can actually unsiege. As long as they've kept on top of their upgrades, and I have to imagine BISU's Flash has done just that. But as they push out, the Protoss actually, it becomes a game of cat and mouse. The Protoss has to try to hit wherever the Terran army's not and keep them at bay, because otherwise the Terran army will come out and roll over everything that the Protoss has.
Yeah, the Terran's just going to slowly move across like a plague. It's going to minefield up, going to push the turrets out, and the further the Terran goes with a weaker army, obviously the weaker it becomes, a smaller army, so the weaker it becomes, the further it extends. But when you get to the maxed out point, you kind of always have a trail of enough units to fight any Protoss army, as long as you don't get caught with your pants down or your tanks unsieged. So I feel like if BISU can continue to put this pressure on it, control the middle of the map, he reaches max out, starts to get a crazy Arbiter count, builds up the energy. That's where we're going to see the Stacies. That's where we're going to see the mass recalls on the main base. That's where he can use that late game Protoss mobility to end up getting a lead here against Flash. So far so good for BISU in terms of containing Flash and not letting him take control of the middle of the map.
Terran is now moving out. This is the max out point. It is very scary for the Protoss. Remember, these guys have 12 units on each control group, so moving the army, you have to know exactly what you're doing. If you overstep, it's very hard to retreat. The difference between move command and attack command here is very important. He's getting set up, and it seems like Protoss is going to try to have a head-on engage.
The tank's not sieged up immediately, but most Zealots are taken out here. Here come the Psystorms, though, from behind. He's got a large wave of Zealots coming in. Another great Psystorm here. Flash caught in the middle of the map. This is what I was talking about, catching him. Some of his tanks on siege. Reinforcements coming in. He tries to siege up. The Zealots are here.
Unreal. He's actually doing it. He had just enough good storms, and I believe there's just barely enough Dragoons here that they can actually head on, take on the tanks.
Psystorm here as well for the finish.
If he had not gotten Psystorm before teching up to Arbiters, it would have been a different story. And this is something we occasionally see in a PvT. When you're not sure you're going to have Arbiters with stasis in time, you put 4 Templars in a shuttle because you don't want them to get sniped by the Vultures and the tanks. And you just unload and storm in exactly the right points, and you can melt the army. Had he not done that and done that perfectly, he'd be in trouble. And now we have a pylon wall coming up here as Protoss is trying to grow at a rate that Terran can't handle.
He knows that basically during that fight, Flash was making pure Vultures for the counterattack. The Remax is faster with Vultures. He can replace them and try to get some economic damage done with a more mobile army while the Protoss is out far away from his bases because he took that engage head on in the middle of the map. But with the pylon wall here, these Vultures, many of them get trapped. At least Flash is able to save the majority of them because if they get knocked out, there's no more harass for BISU to worry about. He brings the Arbiters across and maybe looks for a more direct engage. And speaking of Arbiters, those Arbiters are building up the energy now. The first one he has should have a stasis available soon, and he may have a second and third, getting close to those mass recalls. That's when he's going to start playing tennis, ping pong with this slow Terran army and start ripping apart the production. The Protoss never can attack the Terran's production directly until those recalls become available.
Yeah, if you can recall up there, and in some cases, if you're a real badass, you get a stasis on the ramp, sometimes with your own Zealots. And then what happens is that there's nothing they can do to get up there and save their main. Of course, Flash should be ready for that, but BISU's pretty sneaky. Sometimes they'll have hallucinated Arbiters moving out on the map, so they try to sneak in at certain points and make either player misfire. But once again, Flash is maxed out. Flash has the push potential to come out on the map. Also, there are not that many places that Flash can continue to expand to. Yeah. In fact, he's sneaking an Expo in the upper left. If BISU doesn't catch on to that, it's going to be really bad.
Okay.
Oh my God. Hallucination. They're not all real.
They're not all real, and he has to determine which ones are, but so difficult to do in this situation. So the fake Arbiters, he has to focus them down. While he's noticing this, the Dragoons move across the map. They may be the same Dragoons that are hallucinated in. Let's see what he goes for here. This must be the real one.
Here we go!
Looks like it's taken out here. That was fake, actually.
I believe he actually got an EMP on the actual one.
Okay.
It didn't seem like it had any energy. Oh, but meanwhile... Oh, no, I think those are actually the fake ones.
Okay. Well,
Sorry,
we don't
guys,
know.
we have no idea what's going on. So we have the Dragoons and Zealots now coming down here, but there's enough Vultures. Oh, but hold on. More Zealots are going to spill in here. Does Flash not have enough? It seems like BISU is managing to keep Flash at bay.
Yeah, and here comes the Zealots now coming in with the Mind Drags onto the tanks here. The Stasis here removes 4 tanks from the fight, and this is being pretty cost efficient here for BISU. The tanks slowly streaming in, not able to siege up here. Can maybe even grab that vessel as he pushes forward. Where are the reinforcements, though? Those tanks about to come out of Stasis. He has to back off. Remember, Stasis removed tanks from the fight, but they can't be killed. It's not like they're stunned and they can be destroyed in Stasis. They're also invulnerable. So there's kind of a window of time here as the Zealots fade away. He has to back off as the tanks come back online.
You know, Protoss needs to scout this base in the upper left. I know he's going to see it eventually because you always want to secure the other mains as Protoss because it just makes it more areas that you have to push into to try to get an advantage here. By the way, Zealots now coming down here trying to blindside some of these tanks. It looks like he might be able to get the command center in time before these SCVs can get over here to repair.
Oh, it's going to be close. 100 hit points when he gets the repair. Not enough SCVs, though. Some of those SCVs coming in were set to mine. And now this is going to be a great position here for BISU killing this base. Now, sure, he needs to find out about the one to the top left, but that's exactly where a lot of these units are headed now that he's removed this base. And we'll see if he ends up going all the way. This Templar is so close.
He needs to find this expansion up here.
There's a Vulture that's super
low.
low.
There's one Vulture that can gun down probes before they get there. So at this point, BISU does not realize that if he gets rid of that base up there, he should be able to win.
Yeah.
But Flash is macroing like a god. He's about to move out again here. Basically, Flash is going to mine from that base as long as possible until he's caught, and then scramble and escape with the SCVs.
You have to think he almost scouted it several times because that Vulture is weak. So definitely had some engages there. But here comes a fight. I don't think this is the one that BISU wants to take. The siege up is much better this time. Needs to have those vessels in position, and he does. So no stasis available. And this was too good of a tank setup. I could see what BISU was thinking. If the tank siege had been late, there would have been an amazing opportunity. But Flash handles it well. Does he see this base?
Oh my
I
god,
don't think
it's
so.
right under his nose. But Flash is pushing out. He might be able to pin this Protoss army against the wall. You know he wants to get in there with some good storms because the tanks are clumped up just enough. Oh, hold up. Is there a vessel here? We might have this army actually recall. He might go all the way where the factories are.
Okay, here we go. He needs to do it soon. Taken out.
Oh, they're both hallucinated. Yeah, I guess he actually...
He's just faking.
He just wanted to get the Terran army to turn
he draws
around.
him away, forces him to see
us out too here.
Good stasis is really well done here by Flash. The fake out hallucinations draws Flash back here for just a moment. BISU finds a window to kill a lot of these siege tanks. And look at the storm on the Vultures. Defense Matrix is going to buy some time. But this is a great engage for the Protoss. Much more cost efficient. He just needs to make sure he doesn't lose the last of these Dragoons. Needs to be macroing back at home.
Again, Flash continuing to push out. With this hidden base he's got up here, he's just able... Okay, now, the fact that SCV came down there and is making that might tip the hand. But right now, map control is going to Flash. BISU scrambling to muster up an army that can engage this mech push.
He has 2,000 minerals. Looks like he just doesn't have the gas to compete with the macro of Flash here to keep up with his units, even though he got these expensive siege tanks down. The question is, where were the reinforcements? Where was the follow-up? He was so far across the map. This is a huge opportunity for some great Reaver shots, though. 8 kills with this first one. Flash is maybe going to have to turn around. So even though perhaps death was on the doorstep of BISU, maybe this one Reaver drop with the Zealot can turn Flash around. He needs something, otherwise the Terran is going to get on top of his production and control that natural.
Okay, he's just buying time. That's all you can do right now as this mech army pushes forward. By the way, it's much harder for the mech to push onto the high ground than it is to push the natural expansion. And while this is happening, keep in mind, most of the SCVs are going to be at that
okay, recall the main though.
Oh, nicely done.
Okay, if he doesn't draw back here, then this could end up being permanent damage. Let's see what Flash decides to do. Trying to defend with Spider Mines and Vultures alone here. This is eventually going to be too much damage, though. Psystorm going to try to remove this siege tank. Looks like it doesn't quite clip it with the initial one there. Archon being moored. Flash is not budging. He's going to just try to defend this with some of his reinforcements and spawning units. He wants to continue the push here. He wants to go for the throat. He's not going to unsiege. He worked so hard to get this position, he's not willing to give it up.
In one of the stranger games I've seen, even though Flash is pushing out here, he's actually managed to take the upper left. Protoss needs to punish this, like, now.
Looks like the shuttle's finally going to go down here.
Oh my god!
Oh, not the right one.
Yeah.
Still 15 kills on that Reaver. Can't be too unhappy with that one. He definitely knows about it now, though.
Yeah, he still doesn't have confirmed vision, though, of the high ground in the main.
So during all this time that he bought with that recall into the main, he's going to take control of the middle of the map. Wants to take out this 9 o'clock base. Still perhaps unknown that the top left base, the 11 o'clock, is available. This high ground has bought enough time to keep this base mining for BISU. If he takes this out, maybe he can collapse onto that army for Flash to the bottom right. Flash is actually not even willing to keep it there anymore. He's going to move it away right now because he knows if he loses this base and that army gets caught, he might not be able to rebuild it. So You have to respect this choice by Flash. He wanted that bottom right base. He thought he could go for the throat, but he has to turn around here. And he's going to look for the high ground engage here with the rest of his reinforcements.
All right, it looks like Flash could have a good angle here. The Protoss units are bunching up over here on the ramp acting like a filter as he tries to come through. And in fact, he could even end up pinning this up against the wall and wiping out the remaining supply here for BISU. BISU needs to reassemble and eventually get a grip in the upper left corner of the map, because that's what's been funding Flash this entire game.
It certainly has, and now we're going to see these Dragoons trapped here. He's got another set of units, and sure, he had the supply lead for a moment, but Flash stabilizes here, gets the more efficient trade, and now for the first time, he's going to get some real damage done to this base to the top left. Might even be able to hit the 12 o'clock with what little mining's left there to deny that gas.
Again, Flash is now in a very good position here because he can push this vulnerable expansion and still protect the upper left. I don't know how BISU's going to do this. Looks like he's going to try to gear up the flank, but there are so many siege tanks here.
I don't know if this will work. He's got almost pure tanks against these Zealots, though. The vessel provides vision. This was a haphazard attack from BISU, and it may be the last straw that breaks the camel's back that he committed to this and failed so hard. He's trying desperately to catch some reinforcements with Zealots, but this base is the MVP. Finally scouted out. Finally will be recalled upon with if he has enough units to recall.
I wonder, though, if he recalls here, the tanks just go up there and kill it, right?
Yeah, that's what you have to think.
He's already in that spot to begin with. Of course, the funny part about the center left base is that it hasn't been mined from that much because it's been under attack most of this game, so it's always still available for Flash to try to expand to later. Yeah, I think that BISU may have ran out of gas here.
I think so, and I feel like losing the 9 o'clock over and over, but always having the top left works out in BISU's favor now that he deals with the threat to the top left. The tanks over here take this Nexus out. That's a lot of the gas mining for BISU, who's been consistently losing Arbiters. We saw the stasis early on. We saw some of those recall attempts, but with all the failed ones, he doesn't have very many Arbiters left to engage this Terran army.
As you can see, there's really just not many places Protoss can utilize on the map. There's this outpost at the bottom right, which Flash is ignoring while he's keeping pressure on everywhere else. And BISU, I think, has lost too many key tech units. These Zealots and Dragoons just can't compete
anymore
with the tanks that are fully upgraded here for Flash.
He needed some Arbiters. He needed to identify the top left base earlier. And, oh, that's it, GG. That's the end of this game. Flash is going to take it. That was a closer game than I think the end of the game really showed. I feel like the turning point, if we could bring it back to one moment, was in Flash. He really wanted that bottom right base. He did not want to pull his units back. But as soon as BISU committed basically everything to the 9 o'clock, he made that decision. He came in, crushed the army, flanked it basically with the siege tanks, killed the Arbiters there too, and from that moment on had the supply lead. BISU could never contest at the top left, and from then on he lost too many units. He couldn't reinforce on the bottom right because there were siege tanks down there, and Flash cut him apart. Really super high level game we just saw there, and it was very fun. And finally, Tazos, we got to see that late game TVP we were looking for all night.
Yeah, it was really awesome. I got to say, very impressive stuff there from Flash. I do believe a big factor was just the fact that there's this hidden base, and BISU's he's scrambling all over the map, shutting down these expansions. But if he had one Dragoon there, hitting those SCVs,
or 2 Zealots out of a shuttle,
anything, it might have been a different result. But at the same time, Flash really made all the right decisions when he was pushing out. And when you see a Terran army actually come out like that and BISU take it out with the initial attack using the Psy Storms on the bunched up tanks and vultures, and he still engineers it back together, that's very impressive.
I mean, we saw some really great moves from BISU, realizing when he killed the majority of those tanks in that fight that the vulture counterattack was going to be there without even seeing a single vulture. He had the pylon wall coming in, warping in, seeing that coming one step ahead of Flash there. And we also got to see the showcasing of Flash having that amazing macro, taking map control, taking these small skirmishes, sometimes losing a little bit in the fights, but never losing too much while continually macroing at home, getting those siege tanks out. It just always felt like for BISU, once the Arbiters were gone, it's just there's too much Terran, and Protoss can't break that without the higher tech units.
I think when you get to that level of play, one of the most important things to watch for is how the first few Arbiters are used, because Arbiters take a long time to make, and if you lose one or you have a bad recall, that's really where the opening is for Terran to move out, because you're not going to have 8 Arbiters right away. You're basically making 1 to 2 at a time. So if you stop that, then you can probably push as long as you have the proper defense and mines set up elsewhere on the map. Guys, it's nearly 1 a.m. here, but it is still packed at Guangli Beach.
It's time for the match that everyone's been waiting for.
Yes, this is going to be our last match of the night. Jaedong versus Flash.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people around the world have woken up early for this match specifically, but tell those who have just woken up that they haven't missed it yet. It is, as you said, we've gone late into the night here. Well, we started at 8 p.m. It's almost 1 a.m. now, and it's time for the two legends, the top two players that have, in the the modern era of Brood War, facing off against each other in so many finals. This is the iconic matchup, the iconic rivalry here in Brood War. It doesn't really, not many rivalries in esports that come close.
Not really, not at all. With this, we have to watch out for the fact that Flash is very, very strong in mid-game TVZ. For those of you guys that grew up watching Brood War, you probably used to just seeing bio and occasionally the wonky mech build. Now, in some cases, in the current meta, and I'm not joking, if you're an old school person watching, they go bio, get 1-1 bio, and then switch into mech, starting out with vultures to control the map.
Yeah, and it kind of feels like
Tekken into tanks.
Yeah, and kind of in this matchup, it feels like everyone is doing that, but somehow Flash is able to make the transition a little bit faster somehow than everybody else.
He really gets it.
Yeah. So let's take a look at our players, guys. It's time. The final matchup of the night. The Legends. These two have faced off against each other in so many Star League finals, have faced against each other in so many Pro League matches as well. And I mean, it all comes down to who's the better player on the day. We've got upgraded graphics. We've got thousands of fans in the crowd. But these two, they're never nervous. Never in a moment like this. They've seen it 1,000 times. And you have to argue, you have to remember that Flash is in better form than Jaedong recently, but Jaedong looks to get revenge here. Flash defeated him last time they met in the ASL semifinals. And in terms of head-to-head record, these two have faced off against each other 57 times. Flash 30-27, just 3 wins ahead of Jaedong currently. Jaedong wants to get revenge tonight, wants to get closer to that 50-50 score in terms of win percentage. But think about that, 57 games televised played between these two, 30-27 in Flash's favor. So close, so clutch. You just don't get a better matchup than this, Tasteless.
No, you really don't. And I think this is the iconic StarCraft matchup, a Terran versus Zerg. Will Jaedong possibly go for some kind of early rush? It is a real possibility. We saw these guys in the ASL duking it out, and Jaedong has some pretty sneaky techniques to get in there and do his damage early on.
Yeah.
Or are we going to see something even crazier from Flash? You know, he's known for mostly going for macro games and winning by being bigger, stronger, faster, but...
Where are we going? Eye of the Storm again, the 4-player map. The spawning locations for Jaedong, of course, ended up hurting him a little bit last time we went to this map. But yeah, you know, people say that Flash, he can't be broken. His macro is so good. His transitions are tight, but Jaedong has been the one person who's consistently been able to shut him down when he's most greedy, and that's why this is such an iconic matchup, and that's why they're so close. People say, they use the term bourgeois to describe someone in StarCraft who's unbeatable, untouchable, a massive period of dominance. Most people say Flash was never a bourgeois because Jaedong existed, because he would go toe-to-toe with him, prevent him from having those dominant streaks. And here we go, man. It all comes down to this last match. It's going to be so exciting.
This is it for tonight. Flash versus Jaedong, Terran versus Zerg. A battle of two titans, the two greatest gamers of all time. And they want more time, so we actually can't start it. God damn it, man. I was like, oh my God.
This is it.
This is the greatest thing you're ever going to see. But we were just told that one of their keyboards is not quite set up. So we got some more time to kill. Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm a little bit sweaty. It's a little bit late at night.
It's hot out here.
But these games are
suits
hot.
on the beat. Well, yeah, these games are hot. This is so cool, though, to see these guys duking out. Remastered looks really good. Definitely get out there and purchase Remastered. Give it a shot. Anybody can like this game. I mean, there's tons of young Koreans that are picking up Brood War over the last couple of years because, you know, their parents in some cases or older siblings or classmates recommended you give it a shot, and now we have it, but with the proper ladder, with an anti-hack, you know, with all the stuff that actually wasn't great about Brood War because it was an old game and didn't have those features just naturally built in.
And any of you with this new accessibility for Brood War can be a pro gamer. One day you could be the legend that we talk about in 10 years. So
we're on the Korean camera.
So I missed it.
I think we're not on there anymore.
But in time, maybe someone watching this broadcast tonight will remember Flash being the legend. We talked about him so much, Jaedong, and maybe they'll be the new heroes of the new esport. Remember, StarCraft is not only the first one, but the longest standing esport of all time as well.
Wolf, The final game is ready.
It's time!
It's time! Yes!
It's time, guys.
Flash
Let's go!
versus J-Dog to start things off on StarCraft Remastered. We'll have the two greatest gamers of all time in a classic Brood War matchup. Zerg versus Terran. Tell your friends to join us, because after that, we're done for the night, guys. You gotta wait 2 weeks unless you're in Korea and you go to PC Cafe. Guys, Morpheus is fighting Neo.
Certainly is the case, Tasteless.
Damn right.
Announce them for us, Tasteless.
In the bottom left, we have J-Dog, or Morpheus, I guess in this case. What? Okay, that was weird. All right, he stopped it. That was really scary.
Okay.
In the upper left, in the green, we have our Terran player Flash.
Probably what happened there is obviously when pro gamers, you'll see them when you watch them stream, they spam, they grab a lot of boxes of their units to keep their hands warmed up, because in the later stages of the game, it's a more taxing game than it is in the early stage. So you don't want to have cold hands when you hit that mid game where everything starts to get a little bit harder. So you do kind of spam a lot of hotkeys, you do grab a lot of drones, or perhaps you accidentally attack his own drone there in the heat of the moment. This is a tense match, so that's likely what happened, but man, who would have thought, who would have dreamed when these two faced off against each other in the late 2000s, 2008 to 2010, really, where they had their most heated matches, that, 7+ years later, we would have a remastered version of this game, and they would face off against each other on this iconic beach so many years later, amongst not only the crowd that we have here in Korea, the home crowd, but also the global audience abroad that maybe back in 2008 hadn't heard the stories and hadn't heard the legends of these two, but now they certainly have.
Yeah, it's so awesome. I'm so glad that Blizzard is supporting and has continued to support all of their games, right? And of course, this game is so old, to just touch it up a little bit, to make it a little bit more modern so that new generations can come along, is something that's really special.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into this one, man. We are spawning vertically, so not the long rush back. And, we talked about the Zerg aggression in the ZVP matchup, but this matchup is usually dominated by, with some exceptions in J-Dog's case, the Terran aggression. Flash is the guy who will often in this matchup get the 5 racks Marine pressure up early, put on that very hyper-aggressive Marine push, and something that many Zergers have struggled to deal with. And if the Terran at least trades even, they usually become ahead there. And Flash is the guy who's kind of the speed runner of this.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Wolf. He's just done so much damage. By the way, what J-Dog's doing, if you can control the drone perfectly, it can kind of moving shot. Okay, well, instead it's going to be Flash, it does perfectly. You can sort of moving shot and then skirt away from the SCV and keep doing damage. It's very hard to do, but Flash actually timed it out with an SCV of his own, colliding into the drone and then doing damage while on top of it and taking that out. Yeah, so generally speaking, the Zerg has to defend. They need to get to layer tech unless they do some kind of crazy all-in. They have to have the layer tech, or they don't have enough to leverage any position over the Terran.
And Flash is not the kind of player, by the way, at least generally, which is one of the things that makes him so scary, is because when he does do it, you get so tricked to do things like what we saw from our Terrans earlier in this matchup, to proxy, say, a factory in the middle of the map and do a vulture rush. Sure, he will do it 1 out of 100 games, which will throw you off guard really hard, but we're going to see the more standard Terran versus Zerg this time around. It's going to be the more contemporary approach, where we'll likely see, as you mentioned before, the late game transition to mech, if we get there, and the Zerg taking the third base to the bottom right, trying to get those Nidus networks up to connect the bases, get the lurkers up. So how much damage Flash does in the early to mid is going to be...
He's actually going to go for an Overlord snipe.
Yeah.
This is risky to do as Terran, by the way.
Looks like he's just barely going to get the Overlord
timed it out. He actually gets away. Now the problem is when you do that, if the Zerg have enough lings, they can just come in there and take out those first 2 Marines. But I guess he scouts here with the SCV, identifies, okay, that's where the lings are. I'm going to try to come out there and do this damage and get away. But J-Dog has timed it out pretty well, too. The command center's almost done here. We see the layer tech starting now for J-Dog. We want to see, does he go for the Hydra tech or the Muta tech? And sometimes you'll see both Hydras and Mutas. And with Hydras, I really mean lurkers, by the way.
Sure.
You don't really mass Hydra against a Terran player that has a bio.
Well, we saw even in the series in the ASL semifinals where these two faced off against each other that Jaedong was willing to do the Hydra bust, and to very success. We've seen him do this against several different Terran players over the course of his professional career. But like you said, it's very unlikely. What we do have to consider the possibility with this guy that he may do it. But it's more likely he's just going to take the macro approach. Does have the third base for extra larva, not a third base per se, but a third
macro
hatchery.
hatch. Yeah.
Yes.
Terran can't really move out on the map that safely. I know we saw 2 Marines go out, but there is risk involved there. If the Speedlink's coming to catch it, those Marines are dead. But Terran can't move out until they have stim and medics, because that's when Marines become, instead of these flimsy units that die to basically everything, they become these very agile, deadly units that deal damage very quickly and can escape and be microed in such a way that you can end up winning fights that you should never have been able to win.
Yeah, when you have the medics out, the Marines go from being paper thin to feeling like they've got steel armor against units like Zerglings that do damage just too slowly to actually to get through the healing power of the medic. So looks like we're going to see that 5 rack swap. He's got the 4 already.
So this will not be the switch into mech, at least not yet that we've seen before. This is something you do to try to make it incredibly difficult for the Zerg when they're trying to get the third base up. You have so much muscle on the map. As long as you control things well, it's very tricky for the Zerg. So mid game is going to be very dicey for Jaedong.
Notice that Jaedong sent a Zergling to every corner of the map right now just to make sure several things. One, that there's no dropship across the map. 2, that a Marine didn't sneak across to try to block the drone. That's probably going to go to the bottom right to take a third base. Isn't getting away with lurking there, so we can kill the drone. Gets a ton of extra vision this way. And it's very mechanically demanding to send Lings across the map like this, cloning them around, but he spent the resources to do so. And we are going to see the attack now, the tech now coming out. He does have that Spire completed.
As the game continues on, we see the scanners are going to be ready. Now there's a couple techniques that Zerg can use. One is called hold position lurkers or stop lurkers. You can bury them on the map. In this case, we see it might be instead mass muta with Ling, which if Terran gets in a certain position, they can get completely blindsided and run over. You can also use the mutas to try to counterattack. Now, we should eventually see lurkers later on if we don't see them now, but just to give you guys a general picture of what this phase of the game is supposed to look like, that's what you want to watch out for. So it seems like Flash is perfectly timed out the turrets.
Yep. Just a few Marines here because he knows the turrets can be repaired. And what the idea with these mutas is to buy time to get these sunken colonies up and to catch reinforcements. This means that if he wants to attack, if he wants to commit heavily,
we're on camera right now. What's up, guys?
If he wants to commit heavily, then when he goes in, when he does go for the attack, then reinforcements can be cut off, of course, by those mutas. So this army right here is the only one he's going to be able to push all the way across the map with, because any reinforcements will be killed by the mutas. As you can see here, you're going to try to catch those reinforcements coming out of the natural. And their turrets make it so the mutas can't really harass. They're just simply there to buy time. Does try to get a turret here, but there's too many Marines back at home.
Okay, so he's coming here with these mutas, but there is an army of Marines and medics making a beeline down to the bottom right. It's very important that the Zerg gets the hatch up. Now, the drone hasn't started the hatchery just yet. Jaedong spent a lot to try to keep that alive. The Marines are now turning around. Now we're getting to the phase where there will be lurkers in the game. Note the muta control. This is very hard to do, but if you can shave off enough of the Marines and keep the Terran oppressed and stuck inside of his base, you might be able to control the sway of the game. Uh-oh, he's going to get the drone.
Okay, there it is. This is what I was talking about earlier. When the Zerglings went out, they were looking for this exact Marine that hides early to snipe the drone, because it buys so much time for the Terran, to keep this economy. He's even going to look for the Overlord here. It would be incredible if he gets it. Lings are coming over, but I don't think they're going to save this OB. Does get taken out, nicely done. And he also now gets the vision of these mutas being away. He's going to take this opportunity to move a bio further around, knowing the mutas are down to the bottom right.
Well, this is such a great chess game these two guys are having in the middle of the map here, outmaneuvering each other. The big push, though, is going to come down here. Jaedong wants to try to set up and contain and make a third base an impossibility for the time being. And it looks like it just might work, Wolf.
Yeah, look, this is such a strong bio push. It's got the +1. The mutas here are going to be able to snipe reinforcements if they can actually buy time. If these lurkers can buy time, he's going to come in. The lurkers aren't ready. The eggs are in morphing mode right now. Does him in, tries to break down the sunkets. Great Mulus micro here from Jaedong, losing very few, getting those claim shots off. Can he get the lurker burrow? It comes with the counterattack here from the Lings. Will he be able to hold? Lurkers need to burrow. They do burrow, and it looks like Jaedong will stave off the push.
That was just barely held. He did a great job with the Munis over the ledge, hitting that. The lurkers burrowed immediately after they hatched, and the Lynx came in at the last second, right as the Sunken Colony defense had fallen. Map control right now is going back to Jaedong, but Flash has a second push coming up here. Flash eventually will have to answer the question of when is he going to get his third base, because right now he's powering on 2, whereas Jaedong's hatchery is on the way down here in the bottom right.
Yeah, the next step, of course, for Flash is to figure out how to deal with that. He's going to have vessels out here to deal with the lurkers. Speaking of which, had he gone for the third base with this risky move out, the hold position lurkers could have trashed his army. He doesn't have vessels here, so he's lucky he didn't take that path, or he might have just lost his entire army. They are spotted now here. Flash going for the stim chase. Does have scans, of course, mind you, to engage on this. Jaedong wants to race him to the top of the ramp so he can hold this ramp here. Or not ramp, but obviously this choke point, I should say. And he does get there in time, and there's a Nidus Canal available, so this base should be defended. Now that he's got the creep here, he can place that Nidus. So close call, barely getting those lurkers in that choke point means he saves the third for now.
Okay, now Terran's gonna have to rely on drop ships being sent around the map. As you can see, with the Nidus network set up, as long as the Zerg has Dark Swarm from the Defilers, you can basically defend endlessly from a Terran push. And this is sometimes when the wind in the sails of the Bio Ball begins to slow down as Zerg is stabilized.
Okay, he's attacking multiple locations at once, so he's going to hit the main, the natural, and that third base to the bottom right here. Big stims coming over. This should be cleaned up by the Zerg. He's got the great defense here. Jaedong shuts it down. A lot of drones lost at the natural. Few of them pulled away here. The third base, because the lurkers are in that choke point, doesn't look like Flash found an opportunity, but here, killing drones already.
Again, it's going to be the Mutas that have to clean up the remainder of this. He's taken out that attack over there. We're going to see now if Flash can try to bust through at this base over here. Now note, the angle that the lurkers are at, you basically cannot walk through with Medic Marine. You can, however, drop, and if the lurkers are not ready to defend, then this base can go down, and Zerg has to have 3 bases in this phase of the game.
If he targets that Nidus, no one's coming through. Let's see if he can get it. Looks like he wants to go for broke here on the drones first instead. Lurker's coming over, the beautiful scan here, and he does have a decent split. Targets down the first lurker. The second one does go down here.
Oh my God,
Too many
he
Marines.
actually did it. He actually pulled it off.
There's
he
not
needs
enough
the
units.
Mutas back over here.
No
the
links, nothing.
Yeah, dropships are headed back home, unable to intercept that.
Nidus is down, that means no ground reinforcements. This looks like a dead base, and even if Jaedong cleans this up, this puts the Flash in a great position now. Hatchery's down, catching some of these spawning units here. The Scourge too late, didn't have vision of the dropship, unfortunately, didn't have an answer. And now Flash doubles his supply, and 2 base versus 2 bases are disastrous position for the Zerg. Jaedong needs to retake that, but this is now an opportunity for Flash to take the third. He killed so many of the lurkers too. He kept his vessels alive, and Jaedong is in deep trouble.
As you can see, Flash is still forcing Jaedong to juggle around the map to try to deflect this. Jaedong has not managed to get these Scourge to connect with these dropships, and this means Flash then reverts back into pushing out in the middle of the map. Assuming that the Zerg army has probably been thinned out enough, a head-to-head engage should be one he can win.
Yeah, with these vessels now and the irradiates available, should be able to win it, but he's not microing them, he's not paying attention. Huge opportunity here for Jaedong. Looks for the first vessel, does actually fail to get it, will pull the irradiated Mutalisk away immediately. Decent micro here from Jaedong, but he's bleeding off units right now, and this push, maybe the last one of the game as he moves across now. Vessel's leading the charge. He's lost so many drones, down on economy, desperately trying to replace that bottom right base, but that's it, he types out GG!
Flash wins in our final match tonight. I gotta say, that was a very good game by both players, just barely. Jaedong managed to keep that base there if he was ready at his third and had the right units. The lurkers perhaps just staying around the hatchery instead of at the entrance. He might have actually won that game.
If he had more vision, or if he had Scourges, if he kills the dropships, if he just knocks those 2 out of the sky, totally different game than what we just saw there.